Hello, grade 10 applied. We are starting today's lesson, and this is the week of April. I'm going to write it on top. Week of April 13th. This is lesson 1 of 2 lessons from this week. Okay, so follow along. So the thing that we're going to look at now is slope. Okay, and what the slope refers to is how steep a line is. Okay. So it says it here, the word slope is used frequently in daily conversation. You refer to the slope of a road, the slope of a roof, or skiing on the slopes. The slope of a road or a hill is defined as the following ratio. So this ratio is saying, in order to find the slope, it's rise, and rise goes up and down, and run goes right and left, if you think when you're running. Okay, so that's super important. I'm gonna put a box around this because this is what today's lesson is all about. Okay, so for example 1, if you take a look at this, we're trying to find the slope of this line. Okay, so we need to find what is the slope of this diagonal line. Okay, that's what it's asking you. Well, you're gonna look at your ratio. So slope is rise divided by or rise over a run. Okay, in order to figure that out, the best thing to do would be to label what you have. Okay, remember that I said rise goes up and down. So which one of these side lengths goes up and down? There's the rise, and which one goes right and left? That's the run. Okay, it's good to label them so you can see, and I'm going to highlight what we're going to use. This is the rise, and this is the run. So in order to figure out the slope of this line, which means we're trying to figure out how steep this diagonal line is, because it could go like really high or it can be like really low. Okay, so let's put in the numbers. So I have here that the rise is 8 and the run is 15. Okay, so then you look at your ratio and you think, is there a way, like, can we make this into a whole number? Like, does it divide, or can you put it into lowest terms? And you can't. There's no number that goes into 8 and also goes into 15. So this is the slope, okay? It's really, okay. So that's the rise and that's the run. That's example 1. Example 2, we're going to actually apply it to kind of like word problems. So for example 2, okay, I'm going to read the question because it's missing something on the diagram. For the road, the rise is 20 meters and the run 400 meters, okay? So we have that the run is 400 meters, okay? Now, which one of these is the rise? Is it going to be this, or is it this line? If you said the second one, you're right. And the rise is 20 meters. Okay, so notice with this question, it only gives you one, it gives you the rise and the run. That's nice. Okay, the question before in example 1, it actually gave you 3 side lengths. Okay, so just because it gave us that this, this length here is 17 centimeters, it doesn't mean we need to use that number. Okay, so when you do questions, you have to make sure that you know which numbers to use, because sometimes you're given extra information that you don't necessarily need to figure out the question that's been asked of you. So in this case, we don't need to find the length of this, right? We just need to find what the slope is. So we need to do rise divided by run, and I'm going to highlight again the information that we need. So rise divided by run. So I'm going to follow this along. So here, the rise is 400 meters. Sorry, I lied, 20 meters. And the run is 400. Again, you want to put this into lowest terms. 20 can be divided by 20, which is equal to 1. And 400 can be divided by 20, which is equal to 20. Or another way to reduce is like you reduce the zeros. And then you have 2 over 40. And then 2 divided by 2 is equal to 1. And 40 divided by 2 is equal to 20. Okay? Either way, we get that this is our slope. Okay? So a slope of 1 over 20 means that the road goes up 1 meter, so that's the rise over there, in every 20 meters of horizontal distance. And just in case you didn't know, rise also means vertical. Okay? And run means horizontal. So think of like rise as, when people talk about how high they can jump, what their vertical is, they're talking about up and down. Okay, so for example 3, okay, we need to find the slope of the wire. So this is the wire here. If you notice all 3 examples, did you notice that they're all right angle triangles? Okay, so when we have to find the slope, we need a right angle triangle there. Okay, and here's a right angle there. The problem is we don't know what the rise is. We do know what the run is. It's right there at 40 meters. We don't know what the rise is equal to. And we have the hypotenuse, right? So let's label these. And so in order to figure out the rise, before we can even do rise over run, we have to figure out what the rise is equal to. And we're going to use the Pythagorean theorem. And the law of Pythagoras is that it's a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared. If you remember, this just means like this any side length of right angle. This is the side. And c is the hypotenuse. C is the one that really matters, okay? You always have to have the hypotenuse on its own on one side of the equal sign, whereas the side lengths, they can be interchangeable. Okay, so I'm going to label this now so that I'm going to follow this along, okay? We don't know what the rise is, and I'm going to follow your handout where they labeled it. We don't know what the rise is, that's X, so that's one of the sides, okay? And then the other side, I'll label that as the B because it's the run, and the hypotenuse is C, okay? So I'm going to highlight the numbers that we do need. So in this case, we have 40 and 50 as hypotenuse. And we don't know what X is equal to. And really we're saying like, okay, that's A, right? Okay, so let's fill that out here. So instead of A, we're going to use the X value. So it's X squared plus your B. And in this case, B is 40. So we're going to write the 40 in there. Squared is equal, and our C is 50 squared. So I'm going to do the math. 2510. And then we're going to isolate X, okay? Because we need to find what the value of X is equal to, it means, well, we need to get it on its own to figure it out. So we're going to transpose this over to the other side, which means you're subtracting 1600 from both sides. And the part that I'm writing in pink, you don't necessarily need to write it as part of your work. It's just what is happening so that I don't lose any of you. So we have the X squared is still there, equals 2500, take away 1600 is 900. Okay, so have we fully isolated X? Not yet, because we have this little square there, okay? And if you guys remember what the opposite of squaring something is, it's to take the square root. So if we take the square root of this, it means all we're left with is X, okay? Because it's the opposite of each other. And the square root of 9 is 3. Square root of like 100 is 0. So we have 30. So if you notice, our X value, we're going to write it up here, is 30 meters. So that's what we found. I'm going to highlight that. Okay, so we've now found the rise. We were already given the run. So now we need to use the rise to figure out what the slope of the wire is. Okay, so this is the toughest way that you get a question, is that you're not given either the rise or the run, and you have to figure it out through the Pythagorean theorem. Okay, so we found out that this is the rise, and I wrote it up there. So now we need to find the slope. So the slope again is rise divided by run, or rise over run. So our rise is 30 and our run is 40. So notice I didn't use a 50 there, but I did need to use it for the Pythagorean theorem to find the rise. So I have slope, and my final answer will be 3 over 4. Okay, because you can divide both of these by 10. Okay, so I'm going to circle this because this is my final answer. I forgot the E on slope. And I'm going to write my answer. Therefore, the slope, of the wire is 3/4. Yay. Okay. And that's really it. So, please do the work on page 4 of your, the booklet handout. Okay. And it'll say, that it's the work there, and that's for after today. Have a good day. And what do we tell COVID? Can't touch this.